I think that was my way of being like, if I get it all out and I come clean and I just own it and I claim it and I tell everyone every single thing, then it's out of me. There's nothing to hide. It diffuses the energy. It liberates me, and then I can't get away with covering up, because if every single human in my life knows my tricks of bulimia and addiction, all this stuff, I won't be able to do it in front of anyone again. So it was my way of calling myself out to stop me from going back.
Hello and welcome back to Bathtime with me, Kiley Mac. And today we have one of the most shiniest and brightest and kindest humans that I've ever met on my long journey to this point in my life. And I'm so honored to have my sister, my roommate, my friend, Charlie Travers here with us. And Charlie is truly just a full-on Renaissance woman. Like, she has been a TV host extraordinaire on so many amazing, cool platforms. She's been on television in a lot of different realms. She also has a podcast of her own that you have to check out. She's also launching songs. She's like an amazing artist as well, and produces and sings. And she's also working on a project called After Hours, which is a YouTube channel with our dear friend Kara, who's also been on the show. Mm-hmm. And so every time I talk to Charlie, I'm like, you're always doing something. You're always wanting to create and expand and bring people into that space. And beyond all those achievements, you're just one of the most solid people I've ever known, with like substance and honesty, and like you're so in tune with your emotions. I'm just gonna say, perfect timing.
A little tune in my emotions.
So thank you. I'm so happy to have you today.
Thanks for having me in the bath.
Yeah,
I love this. When you said it was in the bath, I was like, that's a genius idea. Why didn't I think of that for my podcast? I love it.
Thanks.
So
years
fun.
ago, I was like always just like voice memoing, being in my tub, just like it was my space that I kind of could finally think, you know, like no distractions. And I remember being in the tub being like, God, it'd be so fun to have like a bath time with Kiley Mac, like just series. And I thought it'd just be me. But then I realized, you know, friends from Bali would call her and have these long, like 2-hour conversations when I was in the tub.
So it's super connected time.
And I was like, I'm so present because I don't have all these other things.
And then this house offered you too.
And then I walked in the house and I was like, manifested.
Yeah.
Like so free.
I didn't know that, so it was like an ongoing idea.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I love it.
Thanks. And so now it's a reality. And I've loved living with you, and I feel like I know you for you, but I don't every day I'm like learning of new things that you've done in the past.
I know, that's what's hilarious living together, is we know people as they are right now and their future mission, but we don't know the past very much. I don't know much about your past at all, which is hilarious because we've lived together for so long.
And I wish you did, because it's been a wild time here. I feel like I've been going through so many changes and kind of like re-metamorphosizing, you know, who I want to be in this new chapter. And sometimes I'm like, oh gosh, sometimes community is hard because people see you in your shine and in your shit.
All of your shit.
They see you, the sparkle and the shit, you know? So it's like, well, here we are. If you can love me through my shit.
Because then you know who's really, you filter out the crap, literally.
You're like, at least you know the worst, and then you go from there, and that's what it is. But
I feel like this house has been all about that. It's been a place where everyone's come here, had giant life changes, huge epiphanies, gender changes, like everything has happened in this house. Mm-hmm. And then it's kind of this rebirth thing ready to launch out into the world. So
no, exactly. And I feel like when you were talking about earlier, just like how we're this amazing house full of like all these people on missions, it's like, oof, it would have been, of course, so cool to film the whole thing, but also this has been our home, like our safe space, our sanctuary that we kind of like come and digress and like can like kind of chill out in. But I think about that a lot, like how we truly are like this Renaissance tribe, and that's only growing, and that in some aspect we all are these Renaissance people, right? Of just doing all these different things, you know? And something I love about you is like, when you meet you're like, oh, I wonder if she had cool singing, like all these things you learn, right? And then it's like, wait, like the realms you've been in and the things you've done.
Sorry, keep
like,
me adjusting.
No, I know.
I'm sorry.
It is good if you want to lean this.
Sweating.
You can turn it all the way if you want to. Even.
Struggling to fit in the bath. Hang on.
Yeah. I love this suit. It's so cute.
This was literally, no joke, on sale in England at this shop called Primark for $1. This was $1.
That's insane.
Yeah, and £1, which is like $1.20.
Yeah.
I should have actually put makeup on because that makes me sweat more.
Oh no!
I didn't even think. I'm so used to like, if I got tissue stuck to my face. Basically, I forgot I was getting in the bath, so I was like, oh, I'm going on camera.
Yeah.
Wait. So I'm like, I'll just do my usual regime, posting. So as soon as I signed it, it was like, I stopped doing this. What's happening? Oh, I got tissue all over my face. Makeup on to get in the bath. No. I was like, okay, I clearly haven't stuck to my face with the level of laughter. See, this is the thing that, just quick side note.
I love it.
Well, it's also part of what how I love being on TV and hosting is like doing stuff that's not the contrived, composed rubbish. Like I am not that person.
Yeah. When
people are like pristine and perfect in front of the camera, like that is not real. And I don't want to promote that that's real because that does the whole perfectionist rubbish again.
Yeah.
So those moments like that are what I live for. So I'm like, yes!
Dude, I
some
love
real,
it. Yeah.
Some real.
I just feel like I haven't gotten to really like know much. Like we said, like we know each other now. I love it, it's cute. We know each other now and like we know where we want to go, but like I haven't got to really know like how you got here. Like we've had pieces, of course, of like we've shared a lot of some of our stories that really grew us. But like, what do you think has been like for someone who like, how do you stay so authentic all the time? Like for someone who just like is in those realms of like being on E and Big Brother and like these realms in Hollywood, like how have you just like always been like, no, like I know that this is what I want to bring. It's just like seems so clear.
Good question. I've never been asked that before. It was also funny because I'm usually the interviewer.
Yeah.
So it was really weird for me to be sat here, in a bathtub, sweating, and then being asked the questions. But yeah, I think for me, the only reason I got TV was in auditions or like in meetings, I was just me. So I always knew that when they hired me for stuff, I keep looking at Chelsea, the camera lady, as if she's in the shot, but she's not, but can't help it. I'm just drawn to over there.
I love her.
So I feel like I always got hired as they saw me because I didn't know how to be anything other than me.
Yeah.
And then when they liked that and they were like, oh, we want you for the show as that, it gave me the kind of like, oh, okay, cool. They want me to be me, which is great. And then when I could feel like certain producers in certain shows trying to change me, I just couldn't. I was like, this is not in alignment. I feel fake. That's why I really am not a good actress. I did a 2-year acting course and I think I was actually worse afterwards, like when I started, because I got one in my head and I had all these tools and techniques and I was like, I don't know how to be anything other than me. And I think the other thing is I'm so anti-judgment. I really feel like, I still put a lot of judgment on myself, but I'm working through, even today before this experience, just releasing a lot of judgment and pressure I put on myself like we all do. And I refuse to cave to the judgments and the conditions and the societal pressure. I just feel like I want to be the permission slip to remind people to not be composed all the time and to not be the person that has to be together because it's not real. And for me, I just I feel comfortable being myself and I love being around people that are themselves. Mm-hmm. So if we could all just live in our truth, be ourselves and take care of that, then it would just be so good. So I'm like, well, if I want that in the world, then I have to be that. And every time I feel myself becoming a bit inauthentic or changing because I want to impress, or I feel like, I have to be a certain way to be accepted, or if I meet someone that I put on a pedestal and I start giving my power away and trying to be what I think that they want me to be, or trying hard, and I witness it myself doing it and I'm like, what are you doing? And then I immediately call myself out, usually in front of the person, especially if I know them. And I'll be like, I'm totally just putting you on a pedestal right now. I don't know what I'm doing, why I'm doing this, but I'll bring it to their attention to kind of get rid of it, to sabotage, to dissipate it.
Yeah.
So I just think it's so important to always be however we feel in that moment. I think we have to be that. Otherwise we're dishonoring ourselves to impress. The only reason we do that is to get something, to impress, to be accepted. So I'm like, if I can remove all the things that cause me to change my authenticity, if I can work through that every day and keep lining myself back, then I'll be free, like liberated. I'll be free. And then if I'm free, the more of us that are free, we can be the catalyst for the change in the world so other people can be free. And I pride myself, and I definitely haven't mastered this yet, but I pride myself on being a safe space for everyone to be fully themselves. Like, you walk through the door, I want everyone to feel like you are fully accepted by me. There's no hierarchy, there's no judgment there. You are unconditionally loved. And even if the person annoys me or is driving me nuts that day, it doesn't matter. On a heart level, not a heady ego level, like on a heart level, I already know that's my sister, brother, mutual, from the same source. We are the same. It's just the universe reflecting back to itself and me. So I'm like, I think unconditional love is number one value.
I feel that from you. Like, I feel like no matter what, I could like come into your room in shambles or the happiest I've ever been or whatever direction, and you would just like fully receive me and not judge me. Like, yeah. And that's like so key, not only just in like roommates and friendships and life, but just like as other people, like, because as you continue to align, right, we like attract people into our lives, right? So it's like also an amazing reflection, because those are similar values of mine. It's like sometimes to the point where I'm like, okay, should I have more boundaries? Because I just like let so many people, you know, my mom's always like, you're always collecting strays and like letting, I'm like, I know, I still am, clearly, like it's a bus boy. You know, like,
I'm totally the same as that. I am still learning boundaries. That's actually a real challenge, to be unconditionally loving, accept everyone as they are, and welcome everyone in with warm, welcoming arms, and having discerning boundaries at the same time feels virtually fucking impossible. I'm like, I have definitely not mastered that at all, but that's this season I'm in right now, or beginning, is that. It's like, how can I show up in the world like fully, you are incredible, I see you, I love you, I know your heart no matter what you're doing or saying or whatever trauma's in the way. And I'm still going to hold you accountable, and I'm still going to have boundaries. So that's, if you figure out how to do it, let me know.
Yeah, we'll be
and I'll let you know if I figure out exactly. So
we'll be exchanging those codes soon, I hope. Definitely. You know, so with those backgrounds that you've had and all these like amazing experiences, like me and Justine were talking earlier about like, what is this like weird obsession? Because she was in TV production and I was in production. So we were just like sharing a bit about that. And we were like, what is this obsession with like, you know, she worked on The Bachelor like in like 2014 or something. And like still she'll have friends she hasn't seen in 7 years be like, oh, like what was it like working on The Bachelor? And she's like, really? That was like, I've done so much since then. Like that was like 7 years ago, or you know, and there's like this obsession with that. So I'm just wondering, like, you know, in your own journey, how do you kind of like, you know, discern, because you're like, of course you want to be proud of the achievements, of course too, because like you've been putting yourself out there, like from what I know, you've done all these cool experiences, from like, you know, being on the E's Hollywood Medium, which is a cool realm, and like also Big Brother, and then also, you know, talking about when you were a kid, you were like in the Spice World movie, and just like you've had all these like really cool experiences, and then yet through that, do you find it like inspiring and you still want to be in those realms, or have you kind of found like you want more substance, and which direction do you want to go, you know, in those? No,
I definitely have had so much clarity lately. When I was younger, I wanted to be famous, for sure, and I was really embarrassed to admit it. It's like, I can only say it now because I don't want that now. But my whole life, like, I was so embarrassed. I was like, oh, but I want to be famous, but it's so embarrassing because, you know, to admit that. And so I did years of looking into that, like, why do I want that? And like, what is the calling aspect of it too? Because it was like, there's the part of you that wants it for validation and approval. And then there was a part of me that genuinely felt like I'm supposed to do that on this planet and be in a position of doing something good in front of the masses. And so I like battled for a long time between like service and ego and like which part of me does what. But lately, the last year or two, I've kind of come to the realization, after trying to get out of the industry altogether, that is not what I'm supposed to be in it, because I am supposed to be spreading love and messages and fluorescence and honesty and vulnerability and emotions and acceptance and all of the things that I've gone through and that people go through, to make people feel less alone. So that's my biggest kind of thing that it comes back to, is It doesn't matter about the fame anymore. Couldn't care less about those aspects.
Yeah.
Not gonna deny that obviously having an incredible life of travel and some of the luxury that comes with it, or the lifestyle of adventure and meeting people, is still very appealing. But the actual essence behind it is like, it feels like my mission and responsibility to use all the pain, all the traumas, all the dire straits I've been in, from all the addictions, eating disorders, cancerous stuff, the health issues, abusive relationships, just to name a few. The list could go on. And I feel like I really experienced them to the max, for me anyway. And so I now feel that that was worthwhile, because I can save or help, or at least make people feel less alone when I share my story. So if that's what people take from it, like, oh my God, thank God I'm not alone in this. I had all of those things too, and like, oh, it's not as embarrassing as I thought, and she's saying it and owning it, and actually that makes me feel like I can own it too, and it's not so shameful. If I can be that for people, then like, oh, like the thought of that. And that's just like the baseline. On top of that, through my interviews, through the talk show, through collaborations, is people, thought leaders, or anyone really with a story and tools that have overcome things, that are prepared to be really flipping honest, like really authentic and vulnerable. No like, no covering up or making anything look good, like the raw details. Yeah. If I can, through the interviews, gather all these amazing, like juicy golden nugget tools to share with people that helped whoever's talking, and then share that with the world, and maybe it just one person or 100 people, they apply it and it changes their life. So with bulimia, my hope when I share more about bulimia is that although the women and the girls will feel like, oh, thank God, because when I did Big Brother, I told everyone on the show, which obviously was on national television, I had tens of thousands of young girls write to me afterwards on Twitter and be like, you saved my life, like inboxing me being like, you sharing how you overcame it, I did that, and then it changed my life and it saved my life. I'm like, I know. So like, that was when I knew after Big Brother that I have to do this. And that's what,
Sorry, someone really close to me is just, like, been in the hospital because of that, and it's over and over, and we keep almost, So, it's a family member of mine, and I just, like, really felt hurt when you said that. So it's so special that you had so many people reach out.
I wish her so much healing. That's why we do it. That's why we've got to talk about it. And I think that's the other thing, is destigmatizing for me. Is I have done a lot of being honest, very shameful, very embarrassing. You okay? Do you want to breath?
No, I need her love, you know.
So before I went on the show, I just come out and been honest about all of my addictions. So like I hid it for 8-9 years. Lied to everyone, was so embarrassed because everyone thought I was this really like fun, outgoing, sporty, strong girl. And so I was like, I can't tell them, like once I developed this addiction that kind of crept up on me, I was in total denial about it for years. And then when I finally realized that that's what I had, definitely brings up some emotion. I was so embarrassed. And then along with cocaine addiction and other things, and I also had a termination, and just so many things happen at the same time. And so, so lost my train of thought again. So when I went into the show, I had just stopped everything. So I went in as this kind of like bad girl turned good. And so it was just very therapeutic and cathartic for me. Like I needed to talk about it because I was in the house as I was kind of healing.
Yeah.
So I was locked in the Big Brother house for 3 months, no contact to the outside world. And was kind of going through my after addiction in the house, but no one really knew to start with. So I just came clean with it. I was like, I can't keep this in.
Yeah.
So did I just fling water on your laptop?
No, I was like, I did that really
in the corner of my eye, just went like that. And so yeah, I feel like I just decided I wasn't ever going to deny it, but I really decided in the house, like, oh, I have to get this out. And I want to be honest. Like, I don't want to hide anything anymore. I was so secretive for 8 years. I was an honest kid, really sporty, really like simple, clear-minded, super positive, and then went down a dark road of like all sorts, just the list goes on. So I think that was my way of being like, if I get it all out and I come clean and I just own it and I claim it and I tell everyone every single thing, then it's out of me. There's nothing to hide. It diffuses the energy. It liberates me, and then I can't get away with covering up, because if every single human in my life knows my tricks of bulimia and addiction, all this stuff, I won't be able to do it in front of anyone again. So it was my way of calling myself out to stop me from going back.
Wow.
So that was part of why I said it.
Wow.
And then I always had that connection of thinking of people that were alone in the world. Like the thought of that just absolutely breaks my heart, of anyone going through anything sad alone or any loneliness. And where they don't know how to get help, or they don't have the tools or the foundation or the support or the confidence to say anything. So I was like, I have to be that girl. And so that's how I started my journey, to being honest. And now it's just become a thing. I'm a bit of an overshare, and now I'm trying to rein it back in a bit, because I'm like, I kind of give all of my information up. Trying to be a bit more exclusive, trying to keep it back a bit. But yeah, so I think that is another thing that's a massive priority for me, is I don't want to feel judged by other people, and I don't want to feel abandoned by other people, and I don't want to feel anything that's kind of what's the word when you're discluding? What's the word?
Excluding.
Yeah. Discluding.
Yeah,
when you're excluding, I hate how anytime I've ever felt that from anyone, or at school or anything, like it's just the most horrible feeling, and so I never want someone to feel like that.
Yeah. Because
I know I don't want to feel like that. So that's also why I'm very much like, hey, welcoming and warm, because I want to feel welcomed and warm into people's lives too.
We're the same in that one.
So yeah.
That's why we collect the strays though. We're like, everyone is
exactly. My mum's always like, oh my god, who have you called in now? Who's this random person? Who's this? And I'm like, Mum, but they're such a good heart. She's like, I know, I love that about you, but like you have got to draw the line somewhere. I used to have all different people come into my house, people off the street, people, and bring them to my mum's home. And but yeah, I can't help it.
Oh, I love it. I feel like you've just lived so many lives, so many lives.
Yeah.
And with that, it's like, no, well, not that, but I think you've wanted to like experience life. Like you've wanted, like when you're not content or happy, you've been like, no, I want to try this or try that, or I'm going to let this part of me out. Like, like I think you had a background in dance, right?
I did.
Like,
I love
what?
dance.
Yeah. What kind of dance did you?
I did. So I grew up I was really a proper tomboy, by the way, when I was young, like proper little tomboy, little bob, really strong. I don't know if you ever heard of the show Gladiators, but it's like this. It's like one of the most famous shows back home for like sporty, wrestling type people. I was the youngest junior gladiator ever. I got through all the rounds at 10 years old, and I was this like feisty little tomboy. And on live television, on my final row, I fell off the top of this giant pyramid that you have to climb up. And live, I tripped up at the very top, and you just see me coming. Got it on video.
How old were you?
10.
Oh my gosh, was that your first one on camera?
Funny. Yeah, that was my first appearance. I was cartwheeling unwillingly and backwards, just smacking my head and like literally spinning the whole way down, and landed right by the interviewer that was like, so Charlie, how did that go?
Stop.
Yeah.
They weren't like, are you okay? They're just...
Obviously, yeah,
okay.
I was okay. So yeah, that was my first appearance. But then, yeah, I just was like, I had so much energy, so I loved dancing. I did like ballet, tap, national, street dance, street jazz, all the things, and then I did all the sports stuff too. So I spent my whole childhood in sports. Like,
what kind of sports?
Hockey, tennis, javelin, hurdles. I used to do it competitively. Skiing, did competitively. Mono skiing, like water skiing. Basketball, swimming. But I was always the one that like, I was like fantastic at sport, but I was always the clumsy one too. So like when we had like a massive pentathlon, everything, I'd be good, but then like I'd do something, in a swimming pool when you have those pool lanes. Have you ever seen the things? Yeah. So there's like hundreds of people watching, and it's like a district competition. And on my first go on this triathlon, I leapt up and jumped in to do this front crawl race. And I dived into the lane and my finger went straight in. So you know where the rope goes? My finger went straight. So that's how it was. Through the thing, got stuck, cancelled the entire thing. They were soaring off the rope, and one by one they took out, and then they grabbed me and they took me out with all the other things. I got rescued basically in the deep end, and I got carried out. 2 people holding me out of the thing and rushed to hospital because it literally, and my whole hand was swelling because it was so tight. So I had to go and get sedated and put to sleep so that they could, because it's thick, heavy plastic, like you can't get through that. So like that's the kind of like, although I was really good at sports, I was also very, very clumsy and had the weirdest stuff happen to me. So yeah. Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
I thought about that in ages.
Wow. No, I love the visual of just like tomboy gladiator Charlie.
Really feisty.
So feisty.
Yeah.
What else? What other memories do you have from playing sports? What did you do?
Oh my god, I don't know if my memory's good enough for that at this stage of my
Or like,
life.
how did it make you feel? Did it feel like, because you talked about like the thing you hate the most is like being excluded, where I feel like teamwork is like, you know, you feel like, oh, you're part of something, the belonging, like, you know, it's like you're playing sports too, and yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's, like, I felt definitely, at school I felt very much, I felt alive doing sports. Like, I loved it. I felt so, like, thriving, alive, strong, connected, fun, outdoorsy, adventurous. I'd always do, like, any activities, and we had this thing called, actually that's another thing that went wrong, but there was a thing called the Cold Stream Cup, and it's like in the winter and you have to like run miles and miles and do assault courses and like lift a giant log and swim through a lake with it on your shoulders.
Oh my god.
And like shoot all these clay pigeon shooting things, and like it was wild, but I loved all that stuff. I dropped the log on everyone's head, and that was also, but aside of that, it was good. But yeah, no, I think that's what I'm reconnected with at the moment, which is why I was in a bit of a funny mood today, because I have gotten very serious, believe it or not. I don't know if you or anyone else that knows me in recent time would know that, because you know me as I am. But compared to my life when I was younger, I was just so light and so fun and like so not serious. And I was a little rebel, and I just lived life how I wanted. I didn't care about the rules, what people thought of me. I was just doing what I wanted to do. And if I was curious about something, I'd go do it, and I wouldn't care what people thought. And then since all the addiction and the bulimia and the things that happened in my 20s, I just developed this insecurity, self-consciousness, caring what people think, overthinking everything, and I just got all up in my head, all up in my own grill, and trying to get out of it. So I'm now doing a lot of work to just get out, back into connecting with my body, back into sports, back into dancing, raving, being silly, being adventurous, getting curious again like a big kid. So that's what I'm working through at the moment, is I'm hibernating in my room a lot to just release and reprogram a lot of my constricting beliefs and stuff that's in my way and patterns that are not serving me anymore.
I love this for you. I think this is so cool, because like when we played Capture the Flag in Big Bear, I was like, whoa, you're like athletic. Like this is fun.
I loved
like,
that.
Right? And so I'm like,
oh yeah, take it very seriously.
I've been wanting to have a good paddleball partner, because Evan was and Blue was, but they're like all doing, so let's play paddle.
I would love that, actually.
Right? I have a bunch of paddles. Cool. Yeah. I'm down. Yes. Manifested. Yeah. I've been craving that. Yeah. I just feel like, you know, I just really
feel bad with my back to you. I think I'm going to
turn. Yeah.
Change it up again.
And you're losing more water. If you want to get more water, you can. Okay, cool.
Oops, daisy.
I know, it's always like slippery. But no, for me, I really appreciate, like, even in this episode, like, you when you're watching, like, you can feel just who you are as a person, and like I see you as like that light, fun person. Like, I don't think I've laughed this hard in a while, you know, and just like, and cry. Like, I just love like how deep you go. You're not like a surface level person, even though like kindness is sometimes like mistaken for like surface level kindness, you know, like, right? And with you, I just feel like it's like, no, we're going to the depths. We're probably gonna laugh, we're probably gonna cry, we're probably gonna have fun.
Bring it all on.
We're gonna, just the full spectrum of like the life experience and the human experience. And I think you're really good at like bringing that to the table. And even though like we can be our own harshest critics in the sense of like, I hear so much what people think, but like to me, I see you as just like someone who's out there like getting it. Like, you know, like you just like, you attract people in your life who may want to try and bring in more seriousness to you or try and like, no, it's done this way or it's done this way. And I just appreciate that you're like, I hear you. Like, I'm not going to ignore you. Like, I hear you, I see you. But like, and this is who I am. Like, the world needs those people who are just like on fire and lit up and
living it their way.
Totally. And you do it in such a way that still has like this really nice balance, like water element where it's like you're still very understanding and connected to your emotions, but you still have this like zest for life. And I think it's like a cool balance because I think a lot of us, especially as we get older and things happen to us and for us in our life that just can like totally reprogram our confidence and our power and all kinds of things. And I love that you're like tackling it and you're like, no, like putting the brakes on. You're like, I will figure out what is going on. I'm going to strip what I don't need. I'm going to notice what I'm overdoing or doing that I want to do less of or like more of. And you're just like in it, you know? And I think there's such a power to
I'm going to get in the bath with you when I feel I'm having a bad day.
Yeah, please.
Remind me of all the things that, thank you for that reflection. I love that because I don't, but yeah, I mean, that is true, but because I'm harsh on myself, I don't often enough slow down and like give myself credit. So like when you say that, I'm like, oh yeah, I do actually constantly trust myself to like dig in and find the shit. I'm like, what is in my way? Why am I behaving this way? Or if I get insecure or jealous, or if I get inadequate issues or pedestal or people pleasing comes out again, I'm like, where is this coming from? I'm not gonna have this dictate my life. Too many of us have all of these external or these imprints in us that are dominating our lives. And like, I am all about freedom. I'm like, I'm here to cause and help my own, including, first and foremost my own, and then therefore others, is freedom and liberation. And I'm like, I cannot live in this, I can't look at myself in the mirror, have this precious, beautiful gift, a miracle of life, where we get one opportunity, at least in this body, with this name and identity. And how can I possibly let these conditions, these brainwashing beliefs, these things that we or someone else has put on ourselves and get in our way of like what joy feels like and what happiness feels like and what freedom is? Like, why would we prison ourselves? And I've done that my whole life, and I'm like determined, I'm not gonna let it happen. So I'm like, I will not surface and I will not share stuff. Well, I do share actually my process, but I won't surface out of my cove until I've like figured it out. I'm like, you have to just, we need to, the only person that can do it is us. So I'm like, why would I let what people think stop me from enjoying my day? Like, that doesn't make any sense. If you think about it, like, other people with their perceptions and their opinions completely based on their lens and their traumas and their stuff. They're not my life, they're not me, they don't know me, they're not in my head. And yet I would let someone else's opinion, which is their projection, even if there's some truth to it, which sometimes there is, but their projection completely sabotage and get in the way of like the freeing feeling of pure love, of just being like, I'm me, I'm owning it, I'm present, and this is it, take it or leave it. I'm like, why would I do that? Come on, Charles.
Right?
So like we, whoever is in the awareness of that, I know you are, and a lot of people that we're surrounded by, are on a similar mission in different ways. And I'm so honored to be walking by everyone's side, because I'm like, oh yes, like we need to do this for the people that don't have that awareness or haven't got there yet or don't know how to, or a different generation, so they don't have the, they didn't have the tools or the self-help books, or like, they weren't privy to that, exposed to that. So yeah, I feel like that's the mission, is like, how can we free ourselves? That's really where it's at.
Totally.
So,
and I think that you're like, it's cool. I like that you touched on that, because I feel like you're someone who always will constantly be like, like it's almost like what you said about when you're on Big Brother, how you just were like, cool, if I put everything out there, then there's nothing to hide. There's nothing like anything you could potentially say about me. I've already just owned it.
Got there first, love.
Yeah. And then from that space, like, it creates so much freedom.
Yeah.
And so even
it
like,
does.
right? And so even if, you know, for me, I'm like, wow, like, where else in my life can I own those pieces that, like, I have been hiding? Or, like, when I'm hurt, maybe I'm, like, acting out in weird ways that are, like, more from my childhood, but you're like, wow, how are we there again? I healed that. I don't need to look at that. That's not a real thing. And then I kind of, like, don't look at it for a while, and then you're like, I need to, like, look at this. And I'm like, I'm sorry I ignored you, and I'm sorry this is coming up, and why is this coming up? And I love you, and really going there and then owning it and being like, yeah, that's where I was at, and that is a part of me that happens when this comes out, or this and this, and, like, but that's not who I am. And I feel like you're the same thing, where it's like you've been really strong-willed when it comes to, like, cool, like, these things have happened in my life, or, like, I might have been defined at one point as these things, but, like, that's not who I am. And so, like, that fearlessness of, like, no, like, my truth is, like, I'm going to be liberated. I'm going to stay in my truth. I'm going to get aligned and, like, attract those things to me. And, like, yeah, I'm getting, like, on one right now, but it's just, it's so empowering, because I think so often those few things that, like, you know, people project onto us, or that is maybe some truth or some things, like, we let that become the bigger script in our story or in our own mind. It's like, no, how do we, like, either see the script, delete it, erase it, recreate it, or flip it on its head and be like, yeah, you actually don't get the microphone anymore. Like, I'm giving the mic to this fuller version of myself that I know knows the way, while still honoring and acknowledging you sometimes, but not letting you keep me in the dark or in fear, so that I don't even live my life based on, like, potential projections of someone I don't even know.
Exactly. And I think that's also why talking about it, destigmatizing anything like that, being super open, that's what, like, my intention on my talk show and things that I do are, because the more you talk about it, it's like, believe me, the more you talk about it, if everyone was open about it and then it just became this really talked about thing, it wouldn't be so shamed. And then if you're not feeling shame and embarrassment, you wouldn't keep it in. If you don't keep it in and hide stuff, you wouldn't be so ill necessarily, because you'd have help earlier on. So it all comes, shame is such a huge thing that's in our way. And so for me, I like talking so openly about things to remove the shame, because I've done so many what you would consider shameful, embarrassing things. But if we remove the shame and you have a relaxed, safe space to share, you're going to heal quicker, you're going to get help quicker, you're going to be receptive because you're not all tight and scared. So I think people being relaxed is key. And so I feel like conversations like this and, like, sharing in the world is so imperative for that reason, is to, like, cause people to grow, but in a more relaxed environment, not a high pressure environment. I used to be of the belief of, like, I have to, like, sit in the cow shit and, like, do all the hard work, and it has to be really hard, otherwise that's not real growth, because you don't grow if it's easy and it's nice. And it was only my coach, literally at the end of last year, was like, what are you seem to keep going back to the cow dung. Like, what you know you can grow whilst you're, like, choosing to be in the trees with the sunshine. You know, it doesn't have to be all this heavy lifting just to feel like you're doing the work. I was like, oh. So then now I'm trying to make it easier for myself. But anyway, to wrap that up, is like, I want people to feel really relaxed. And that's why I love being in this community too. I feel, and I want people to have that around the world, because when you know that someone's connected to their hearts and they're aligned, then you know that there's someone of self-awareness, and there's someone of probably much less judgment, and someone that's aware and accepting of shadows. And so it's already safer for you to walk into a room and know that they're not just going to go, ugh, you know what I mean, to your ugly parts.
Yeah.
And so I think I've loved, and I want everyone to really be more selective and discerning about who they surround themselves with, because if you surround yourself with people that see you for truly who you are, not the traumas, the stories, because we can see through that, that's not ours, that's just the traumas. And so when someone sees your heart, it makes you feel seen and safe, and that's where you can actually heal, and that's where you can grow. It's like, I'm all about these chats.
Yeah, right?
Because we can just, I want to, spread the message of that.
Totally, and I love that you brought that in. It's like having friends and people, like the soul family in your life that, like, love you for the full spectrum, you know?
Yes.
Like,
not rejecting any of the pieces or disregarding or being mean. It's like, they're all there for a reason, or they all were there for a reason, or some kind of protective mechanism. Yeah. We were born a blank canvas, you know, with these little babies that are, like, you know, super innocent. No one wants to start being like you've never seen a baby that starts, like, well, not that they can because they don't have the physical ability, but, like, But like they're just so pure and innocent. So it's like it's only over time. So I don't like punishing people. And obviously, of course, I end up sometimes I judge and then I catch myself and I course correct it. But I just know, and I wish more people would see it that way. It's like all the people that maybe you're being mean about or think they're whatever, not nice or whatever, they were just little innocent babies too, and something happened, and then that was their protective mechanism. And so then over the years they built up like that, and now they're this, and so like let's help them, not punish them.
Yeah.
And so it's a whole other conversation I won't get into now, but I'm very, it's a bit of a grey area, but even with crime and stuff, I like to be the other person. Of course I don't condone anything that goes on, but I do like to be the person that's like, but what caused them to do that?
The root cause.
What's the root? Like, don't just see them and be like, how, of course there's anger too, and it's easy for me to say that when I'm not, it's not my family or something that's, someone that's been like held abuse out or something. And I don't condone that at all. I think you have to keep your stuff in check, and you need work, and you need to do the work, and you need to heal. Yeah. But I still think it's important to bring understanding to every human as best you can, to at least understand what caused that,
Absolutely, and having that compassion.
Compassion is, we need more compassion on the planet.
Yeah. I default to that as well for some pretty extreme traumatic experiences in my life. Like everyone was like, you need to like call the police or like have someone go do this, and for me, like after like a week or two, I'd be like putting myself in their shoes, and I'm like, to have hurt someone that much, like when they hurt me that much in like such a violent way, I was like, they must have gone through the worst as kids. Like there's no way that they just go around and they have fun doing that. Like they're in so much pain that they need other people to feel that pain. Yeah. And so that's when I went on this whole other like tidal wave of compassion and empathy and like deep understanding of like even the gnarliest situations, like having that compassion. And oftentimes in meditation, I'll put those people like in my meditations and like prayers and like kind of just like unravel, and then like it always ends up with me like holding them as a baby and like seeing them in that state, and then like a wave of forgiveness just like comes. Yeah. And it's weird. I don't ever mean to. I don't go in like, cool, I'm gonna hold this person as a baby. But like I remember like there's been so many, especially a lot of the men in my life that, whatever happened. And so, but yeah, like multiple times it just ends up with me holding them as a baby.
I love that though.
Coming back to that innocence of it,
Because that is at the core.
Yeah.
Every time. I love that you do that. Especially doing it without even trying, because it's just the second nature.
You start like peeling it back, and you're like, oh, but then this, and what happened before that, and the next thing you know, I'm like totally ended up there. I'm like, oh, and I don't want that to excuse. I want them to take accountability and like move forward.
Right, and that's another fine line as well. Totally. It's like we're similar in that sense too. Is like having that compassion and bringing understanding, and being the one to be like, no, hey guys, hang on a sec, let's look at this, but then not being the pushover, not being the one that's walked over, because I've had that too, where I've been super compassionate and I've been like completely abused.
Yeah.
And then I've been, instead of being like, no, I will not tolerate it, I've been like, oh, but I understand what you're doing because they're hurting, or like, oh, I forgive you because you're just in pain and these are just your traumas. And so tolerate a lot in the past. So that is like, no, I'm not going to tolerate it anymore, but without losing the understanding and compassion.
Totally. And I can love you from afar, but this is where my new boundary is on this. It's like, I love you unconditionally, and like, I no longer really need you in my like closest sphere, because like you were saying earlier, like being really mindful of like who you really surround yourself with. And like, it's true, like it's such a reflection of like where you're at. I feel like so many people in our community, you could go to each person with something and they'd be able to like hold space and show up, and like, it's just like, we're so lucky. And I think it's a testament to like I see myself in you in the sense that like we worked really hard to like really attract and manifest and keep like, really high frequency, good people in our life, because that's what we want to surround ourselves with. And it's not easy to find them, and it's not easy to like kind of go through life in moments where you don't have that, so like, I just think I love that mission. Like our friend BC talks about that a lot, of just like, don't stop till you find your people. Like even if you're alone or sleeping in your car, wherever you're at, like your people are around the corner. But I love that. And just I'm so happy that you got to be on today, and I know we could talk for like hours.
I know, that's the danger. And in a tub as well.
And the blessing. And in the tub. The blessing and the curse. But the last thing I just want to ask is, there's so many things, I don't even know what to choose. But I've kind of been ending each episode.
You pick two and I'll try and make it quick.
Okay. Okay, well,
Only because I'm enjoying being asked questions.
Okay, yeah, it's nice,
I'm always
right?
the one that asks, and it's so nice.
Well, yeah.
Like, it gets me thinking about my answer.
Okay, cool. Well, I guess one being, of all the, there's so many ways I can go. Part of me wants to ask, like, of all the moments in your life, when do you feel, that's such a big question, but like, when do you feel that you had like, it probably happens often, but like, this like pivotal point of like, knowing like, no, like I'm going to stay like grounded in my truth and what I want, because I think when you are working through so much like addiction and trauma and abuse, you almost kind of start like, in my moments of those things, I would like start leaning into other people and like partners leaning into their life, or like other people's dreams. You're like, no, I'll just help them build, I'll help them do the thing, I'll help them, like at what point were you like, like I'm going to start like living for me, and like shining from that space, I guess.
Yeah, no, I love that question. I've had that kind of instinct to do that quite a lot, because I've lost myself quite a few times, and so of course with that, naturally then you have to come back again, you're like, right, no more, this is so I feel like unfortunately or fortunately I've done that quite a few times. But two things that really stand out is I ended up having a massive I don't know if I should. I'm like, should I say this on camera? I don't know, because it's got other people involved. I basically, all of my bulimia and cocaine addiction and everything that I was doing, I was just out of control. And it all came to a giant head by my family home being on fire. Because it was the last final weekend that I ever had a big blowout. And that was the catalyst to stop. And I had, a bunch of people over to the house and drug dealers, and we were awake for about 4 days, and I just never showed up for a cup of tea on the Monday with my mum. So she came over to the house, because she lived in a separate house. And she came over and found me, and she bless her, she had a real nervous breakdown because she saw the state I was in, and that was, there's more details, but my whole family home was on fire. My dad's home, because I think we'd left something on, we'd had a party and everyone was out of it, and I think cigarettes or something, but the whole house was on fire. And if my mum hadn't grabbed me, I probably would have burnt down with the house in the fire. So when that happened, I had a huge reality check. I mean, everything stopped. Time just stopped. I just watched the house in the flames on the right-hand side, like 5 fire engines, 20, 30 firemen. All the neighbours stood around, and I was just like, what have I done? And I was just devastated. It was like an out-of-body experience.
Wow.
And then there was a family meeting called, and I had to get real. That's the first time I told anyone that I had all the problems and that I was honest about it, because there was no denying it at this point. I was clearly out of control. So then that's when I was like, I've got to take my life back, and I was like, I've got to do this. So I was like on a mission, and cold turkey just stopped everything. No drinking, no drugs, no nothing. Cut all the people out. Didn't see anyone that I knew that was in that world. And then the other time was just when I had to claim my sovereignty and myself back after a really bad relationship, after it was a pretty terrible relationship. And I just lost myself in it day by day. It was just like literally a shadow of myself. I was tiny, and I was so weak emotionally, mentally, physically. And one day I went to the beach, and I got really real with myself, and I was like, right, Charlie Travers, you are never letting this happen again. Just know, you have got to get yourself back on track. And I was like, no more of this. Get your thoughts good, get nourished, get well, get therapy, ask for help, do this, and you are a strong woman inside, but you are losing yourself, and if you're not careful, you're going to die. You are going to kill yourself if you're not careful. You have got to claim your power back. And I did. I did it.
Yes.
It's ongoing, of course. But
always
is. work in progress. So yeah, that's my 2 moments.
Thank God.
Sorry, I went as quick as I.
No, you're always big. Yeah, I love that you take your time and that you are. That's what I think is so honest. You know, so always with me at least, you never have to cap yourself or filter. I hope you know that. I'm like always here. Okay,
sure. Yeah.
Like always. So with keeping yourself accountable and that new strength, like I know you're a journaler. I'm a journaler now. Again, it had been a while. Do you have like a specific like few things that you do in your journal? Like I just think it'd be cool to give anyone practices who like trying to get into journaling. Like, do you do gratitude? Do you just like let it free flow? Do you have? And I know you've had a unique experience with journaling. We don't need to get into it if you don't want to. But like, I just think like, what are the practices that you do now that like, you know, like, is it just a dumping place? Is it like therapeutic? You know, what is journaling for you?
So I've had to be careful. Quick.
I know.
I've had to be careful with journaling because in the midst of all my different addictions, the drugs, food, bulimia, whatever, I also developed a note. Very weird. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of this, but I developed an insane taking notes addiction. And when I mean insane, I had to have therapy around it. Even the therapist was like, I've never seen anything like this in my life. Thousands a week, thousands and thousands and thousands. In my notes on my phone, I had 5,000, but within that 5,000 different ones, there were thousands. So I had to quit for a bit and not do anything, but now I'm healthier. Journaler. So now I either brain dump and I just like literally morning pages, get it all out of my head, so I'm like cleared up for the day. Doesn't make any sense if I need to do that. And that's The Artist's Way, the book The Artist's Way. I highly recommend it if you wanted to just like connect back with yourself and your creative flow. But journaling itself, I like to bullet point on my laptop. I save it on there just because I'm quick at typing, and I'll bullet point every single thought or revelation. So I won't do it in paragraphs or anything. So let's just say I realize like, oh, this jealousy issue I experienced or abandonment issue comes from here, and now I no longer need to carry it because of this. I'll just like write a sentence about that, read it back to myself, and like really take it in like, oh, okay, why do I not want to do that anymore? I don't want to do it because of this. Why is it a waste of time? Well, I don't want to live like that. I do not want to live being stuck in that. I might write where it came from, and then I'd be like, how do I want to be? What's the woman that I want to be? When I look at women that are like super confident and like don't get jealous and don't care if their partner's talking to another woman across the room or dancing or whatever, and when their body and the nervous system is good, I'm like, well, that's how I want to show up, and that's what I want to feel, because we deserve to feel that way. And anyone that loves themselves and trust in everything will show up like that. Yeah. And if the man chooses to do something, that's totally on him. So then I'll write that like this morning. If the man chooses to that's on him. That's not me. I just show up with my best vibration. And if they deceive me, that's actually no longer on me. Whereas in the past, I'd be like, oh, that means I'm not enough. If they want to go somewhere else, that means because I am. So now I'm like, separate those two. So yeah, that's how I process, is I write it all out in bullet points, read it back, feel into it, and let it go. Wow. And then implement it. And then each week I go back and check each day, like March 8th. I'm like, did I stick to that this last week? I'm like, oh yeah, I did. Or I'll be like, oh, I forgot I even had that genius thought. Oh yes, must implement that. Because sometimes we have all these brilliant ideas and revelations in our journals, and then we just, we move on to the next day. We forget that we even had that great idea or thought. And then we've just left it. So I'm like, go back and read if it's helpful to you, and then implement it until it becomes the new version of you, the new habit, the new pattern.
I love that.
So I
keep
find that
carrying it over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Until it's complete. In you, until it's complete. Exactly.
Woof. I love that practice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yours?
Oh my gosh, all over the place. But like, yeah, it's different.
Well, I go through whenever you want, if you want.
No. I go through waves. I think a really great thing is like in the morning I've been trying to remember my dreams more. Mm-hmm. So I have an app on my phone, but I don't want to look at my phone for the first thing. So what I've kind of done is like, I'll like do a couple bullet points of just like to remember the dream in the journal. Yeah. If I have one, I'll sit like, no, I didn't dream. Maybe I did. I don't know. If I remember it, I'll bullet point. If not, I'll be like, okay, come up in the next 10 minutes if I can. Yeah. And then I'll just brain dump like, hey, this is how I'm feeling this morning. Does it feel like it's mine? Because that's another thing. I think if you're compassionate or empathetic, you can start taking on a lot, especially in your sleep. So I wake up first thing and I'll like kind of check my heart and I'm like, okay, if I'm feeling anxious or this or that or whatever, I'm like, A, is it mine? Like I'll take accountability all day. You know?
It's hard to tell sometimes.
It's
like in this house as well with the 16 other empaths. You're like, wait, whose is who?
Yeah.
What is even mine?
Totally. Yeah. Or like, if it is mine, is it my truth?
Yes.
So that's what I mean. Like, is it my truth? Because sometimes I'll be like, oh, I'm feeling this and this and this, but that's like not actually who I am or my truth. Okay, whew, boom. And so I'll just like kind of brain dump that and be like, cool, this is what I'm feeling. I don't know if it's mine. Da, 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 da. And then I'll usually go into like gratitude and I'll like make myself think of a few things I'm grateful for, especially if I'm in an anxious state, because then I'm like starting with like, no, like I am grateful and this and this.
And it just calms you down to be present again and like, oh, I'm thankful to be alive. And
totally, and for Faye and for fresh water and like I live on the beach or like, because sometimes you just go through your life and then you're like, don't even notice the things anymore. You're like,
complacency is the worst. It's the way to unhappiness. It's like if you're complacent, it's you're not taking anything in as it is. You're just like, you're used to it. You're like, oh, it's there. Rather than like every day, like, look at this beautiful human in front of me. Look at this plant that's alive in front of me.
And the more grateful I am, I realize the more blessings come.
Yes.
Because Spirit's like, oh, you like that? Or life's like, you like that? Let me give you more. So it's like, wow, the more I'm grateful, the more I feel like I get more blessings. So I've kind of like noticed that hack, so I like make time for that.
Like that's the same with friends. Like if you do stuff, let's say you do something really nice to me, is smooth or anything. Yeah. Or like whenever you offer like healing or anything, and then I'm really grateful and appreciative of it. It makes you want to do it again. It's inspiring. It ignites you to do it again. If you did a bunch of stuff for me and I was like, thanks, Kai, don't give a shit, you know.
Yeah, I'd be like,
not like that. You're going to want to do it again. So like the universe is the same. Like if you're just taking all this stuff for granted, like it's energetically, it's not going to want to match you.
Totally.
With that frequency.
Totally. So that's like something I love is like, oh, is there, if when I'm journaling in the brain dump, it's like, oh, like I'm actually not that stoked on my living or not that stoked on this relationship or this project or whatever it is in that moment in time in your life. I've been like, oh, oof, okay, but what am I grateful for in that? Yeah. Because sometimes we get so stuck on the 20% that's like negative or you're not feeling it or that complacency. But if I think about the 80% or the 75% that's like, wait, this is an amazing person or this project's amazing, it's changing lives. I'm not ignoring that 20%. I'm seeing both. And so bringing in that gratitude, then I've like manifested dream houses from that space, manifested like dream experiences. I'm like, whoa. So just noticing that. And then I usually always end with like, cool, like what's my mantra for the day? Yeah. Like,
what do I want for today? What's today?
Yeah. So that if I get into a rut or kind of like get unmotivated or something, then I can like bring it back. So like all day I'm like, cool, I'm powerful, confident, abundant, sexy, whatever those things are that day. And it can be multiple, but just one that I know, cool, throughout the day I can like go to that. And that's been a really good practice for me because then from that state, I immediately feel like, cool, I got my stuff out. I'm good. Yeah. I feel motivated. I'm grateful.
I know who I want to be. I know how I want to show up if I go off track.
Yeah. And then at that point, I grab my phone. I open the Capture app, which is like the Dream app. And I'll just do like voice text and I'll just be like, hey, blah, 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 blah. Cool. Yeah, because then I don't have to like look at the screen. So I'm mainly just like put in the thing, and even if there's typos, I'm like, and then add a picture, you're done. And then from that space, I'm like, oh, I want to meditate. So I meditate for a few moments and I just feel my breath. Then I get out of bed and I usually want to like work out or stretch. And it's cool because I feel like at one point in my life, these were the things I was wanting to happen when I woke up. Yeah. Right? But it was like a to-do list. And so now it's like, no, this is like what is coming out of me. Like, this is all I've ever wanted. Like, this is...
So you're actually doing the regime that you wanted, the morning practice that you've been wanting to do.
Yeah, and I think the thing lacking for so long is I was like anti-journal for so long. I don't know why I went through a huge phase where I was just like, ugh, I can't even do it.
I feel like a lot of people go through that. Some resistance.
Totally. And I'm like, no, this is like your private space. Like think of it as your therapist, your daily like, digest, I guess.
Your intimate space with you, getting to know yourself too, because thoughts are different in our heads than when we see them out loud too. Yeah. So it's like when you claim something out loud, like verbally or like you can see it, it's different. Other than that, because you know your brain and yourself so well, you're just swirling around. But if you actually take it out of you and look at it, it's more clarity.
Like you were saying, like when you put it out, there's nothing else to hide. And so like in the morning, I feel like when I do that, I'm like, there's nothing left to hide. Like, ooh, that is my truth right now. Wow, that's like, I don't really feel like that actually is it. And then versus on the days when I wouldn't journal, I feel like that energy or emotion would like trail and get bigger throughout the day. Like the anxiety, the overthinking, would just grow. But if I just claim it in the morning, I'm like, oh, you're so small and cute. And I can like control you on this little paper versus like this, this elephant in the room that you're not like
addressing or. Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. And then do you have, I know that you take baths here and there, right?
You
like your baths? You're a bath lady?
You asked me about my bath.
Yeah, so I've been ending each episode kind of like if someone takes baths. You know, Justine doesn't really, so I didn't, that was a cute conversation. But like Stevie, Kara, like for me, bath time has been like that space where I can like actually think and not have distractions. And so I was just wondering, some people have had crazy experiences in bathrooms, like either revelations or seeing angels or like just like having clarity or deep moments, or like what is your like bath ritual like? Honestly, even if it's like once every few months or whatever, like anytime you go into the bath.
I actually love baths, like I really love them, but this happens every single time and I feel like I don't know why I haven't learned my whole life. I'm so excited about a bath. I get all my stuff, I build up my pile of books, I get my music on, I get the candle, I set the whole tone, lights, Himalayan salt lamp, Avatar lamp, you name it, it's here. And I sit down, I've got a glass of wine in my hand, and I'm like, I'm going to be here for the night, I can't wait to have some solo time. I love my baths piping hot, but within 10 minutes, without fail, I'm so agitated and hot and flustered and dripping with sweat, and I'm like, I've got to fucking get out. And I never, not once, I don't think I've ever managed to read. In the years that I've got my pile of books and my music, I've never actually ever done any of it, because I sit down and I'm like, I'll do that in a sec. I might send a couple voice notes first or kind of like think through some things. The idea of it for me is 1,000 times better than what actually happens. I'm like, I can't wait every time. And then I'm like, how do you not know this is going to happen again? I'm like, I'm so hot and uncomfortable. Cold tap, hot tap, cold tap. Try and rectify it, and I'm like, fuck it, it's not happening. And I get out. And then I need to go have a shower because I'm all bothered. So I go and get a cold shower, wash it all off, and then I'll like get to all my relaxing candle book stuff in the bedroom.
I love it. I'm so
happy.
I
love baths, but I've got like a weird relationship with them where like it's a love-hate.
Yeah. I love it. I love that. You're so honest. It's so good.
It's the only way.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you. And I hope that this episode. I love this is my favorite.
The bath had me. It's got a vendetta for me. Now this is.
The bath was like, I'm good. But I hope that if you watch this, that you feel inspired to, just connect with yourself a little bit more in the realms of, where maybe am I bringing on extra, stress or anxiety, overthinking my life, and like, how can I make time to really get serious about like shifting these things for me and reprinting myself so I can feel like this liberated, fluorescent, free version of myself, and where can I feel more joy and more depth in that joy with myself, and then hopefully with more people around me. And I
support
think
from tribe as well.
Oh yeah, and support from tribe, and like I hope you call in your soul family, and that you just continue to come back to like what is your honest truth for what you want. And me and Charlie have such big hearts that we're cheering you on, even if we don't know you. Like, we love you so much, and just know that you are supported and you're not alone, and that we just hope that you continue to be, fierce with your heart and your energy, and have that balance of boundaries, and also that balance of your truth and unconditional love for people. And that reminds me, one of my teachers, she once said that she doesn't have boundaries. And I'm like, what do you mean? You have like the best boundaries I've ever known. She goes, no, I have truths. And I was like, what? That. And she was like, just because I don't want every person I meet to like come into my bed doesn't mean it's a boundary. It's a truth. I don't want every single person in my bed. So I'm like, ooh, I forgot about that until this moment.
Yeah, because boundaries can be a bit of an off-putting word for people.
Yeah,
I think they're like hard
strict and like fences.
It feels like guards up. That's what I
barbed wire. Yeah.
It's like, you're not allowed in my heart. I'm setting all these things around myself, but even though it's actually, you can have freedom within boundaries, and I finally learned that. But
but I like that, right? So thanks for helping me remember that. But it was such an honor to have Charlie on today's episode, and she's also releasing a song in June, so we'll put all the links for that as well. We'll put the links to your after hours chat, your podcast, anything else that you want, so that people can stay connected. And you're just such an inspiring, full of life person, and in a sea of like so many people sharing things, I feel like if there's one person that you want to like feel like is dancing or doing something or just full of life, like definitely follow
Jumping
and
into
connect.
pool ropes.
Yeah.
Falling down the pyramids on live TV. You need a laugh. I'm here.
Yay! And we'll see you next time on Bathtime. Ciao.
Yay. Love you.
Love you.